Would you be the jerk for telling your kid you don't have any room for them and they need to live with the other parent? We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I the jerk for calling my sister wacko over my boys' inappropriate shower habits? Dad of teens, boys 17 and 15. They're pretty lucky that in our whole finished basement is their junior man cave. It's not of my doing, the previous owner was a gym rat and really fixed it up. Besides their bedrooms, there's a little gym area with a couple of machines, free weights, and even the world's tiniest locker room with 3 lockers and a bench, etc. It opens into a pretty large walk-in shower, a mini version of an actual locker room gang shower. About 5 feet by 7 feet, I guess. The boys think this basement is their kingdom and they love it. So do their friends. When it comes to showering, it's not unusual for them to just leave the water running and one jump in right after the other finishes. It's not even unusual for them to overlap. In fact, it's not unheard of if they're in a hurry to both jump in at the same time after a workout. It's a pretty normal gym atmosphere and a decent-sized shower with a couple of heads, not like a cozy bathtub shower or anything. Somehow, the setup was mentioned in front of my sister, taking a house tour for the first time recently, and she was appalled. Appalled. Taking a shower at the same time? Together? She was positively incredulous. I told her it was absolutely no different than the boys showering at the gym or in their sports locker rooms at school. Guys, especially athletes, take showers. Yes, together. Happens a million times a day. She said that it was very, very inappropriate. I called her a wacko prude and now she's not speaking to me or my wife. Update, some people might be interested in an update, I may do a separate post. Spoke briefly with my sister, said she was just trying to help my parenting. I ended the call. My boys are awesome, never caused me a minute's real trouble. They are parented just fine. Might be a while before I hear from her. When we do talk again, certain subjects just won't be discussed. Showers, R-rated movies, the fact that the younger goes commando, grades lower than A, skinny dipping or hot tubbing or any bare butt activities, questionable browser histories, manscaping, the younger one's occasional potty mouth, and God forbid she ever learns the older has had hooked up. We'll stick to the weather. To the 95% of you who said not the jerk, thank you. To the 2% that said I should not have called her wacko, she did more than say the showers were inappropriate. There was a full-blown unhinged rant mixed in there. To the 2% who said the showers were wholly inappropriate, that's your opinion. I couldn't care less and didn't ask for it. I asked if I was a jerk for calling my sister a wacko prude. Nothing else. And to the 1% convinced there's a perverted underage gay incestuous thing going on down there, I invite you to go freak yourself. There is nothing of the sort happening. It's a gym locker room and decidedly non-erotic. No one is having hooked up down there. Certainly not my boys and certainly not with each other. Grow up. You know, I really find it sad that OP had to add that last paragraph in, but it is the internet. I think OP's logic is completely fair. Now, would it be something that I would do? No. I've never in my life done any kind of communal shower in like a gym or a locker room. I don't really intend to. It's not something that I'm comfortable with, but I fully recognize that other people do. And it's a really normal thing. Bushi commented, not the jerk. If anything is inappropriate here, it's her for making a mundane non-issue into some sexual perverted concern. That is indeed wacko prude behavior. I wonder if she's uber religious, acting this way because any nudity is a sin or some BS? Good on you, OP. What could she think is so wrong? Also, hi, I'm Steven, and if you guys enjoy getting to decide whether or not all of these people are jerks, why not hit those like and subscribe buttons down below? That said, our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my sister she's not entitled to an expensive wedding gift? My sister got married this past weekend. For a little context, I'm 19-year-old male dating my girlfriend Emmy, 19-year-old female, for 8 months now. Emmy was invited to the wedding despite the fact that my sister doesn't like her because she would rather me be with an ex-fling of mine. My ex-fling, Anna, 21-year-old female, is the sister of my best friend Josh, 19-year-old male. I don't have any contact with Anna, and my best friend and I have set our own boundaries regarding all that. Anna has also made my girlfriend feel uncomfortable on purpose many times, to the point Josh called out his own sister multiple times. We also have 4 other friends in the friend group, all similar ages, 19 to 20 years old, and all of us college students. My sister knows all of them but isn't close to any of them. Anyway, my sister prefers Anna over Emmy because she considers Anna to be prettier and more classy. I never entertained her thoughts, and I always put firm boundaries that were not always respected. For that reason, she decided to invite my entire friend group to the wedding as a justification to also invite Anna. I told her I'm not comfortable with that and that she also doesn't have to invite my friends to her wedding. We had back and forth arguments about that, which ended up with a my wedding, my rules, so I shut my mouth. The wedding came, etc. Since my friends are college students, most of them are either unemployed or have part-time jobs at best, so they don't make much. They ended up giving her a collective gift of silverware, which cost around $200, and they also gave them another $300 in cash. That's all they could afford collectively for the reasons previously mentioned. My sister's now throwing a tantrum about how cheap my friends are and how the silverware wasn't even that expensive and how they should be ashamed for being so cheap, and that when you're invited to a wedding, you're supposed to give a great expensive gift because being cheap is disrespectful to the couple who invited you to their wedding. I said to her that she's not entitled to neither a nice nor an expensive gift at all in this scenario. She invited my entire friend group out of spite only so she could justify inviting Anna despite my boundaries. She knew my friend group consisted of broke college students, so she has no right to expect much. Now her husband, and my parents blame me for being a jerk and not calling out my cheap friends and for not knowing wedding etiquette. So in my eyes, I see OP as definitely not the jerk, and correct me if I'm wrong, but is there an expectation that you have to give an expensive gift at a wedding? Like, is this not some of the most entitled wedding-related behavior you could have? Ooh, what you got me as a gift for my wedding wasn't expensive enough. By the way, can you please leave the price tags on your gifts so I can know whether or not I should hate your guts? Mission South 7810 commented, "There should be no expectation of an expensive gift just because you invite someone to your wedding. When my husband and I got married, we invited people we wanted to share our day with, no matter the gift. In fact, we had some single friends that gave us a card and nothing more, and that was fine with us because we knew they couldn't afford a gift. We were just happy they came to the wedding." OP's sister sounds exhausting. I hope her new husband knows what he got himself into with this one. Yikes. OP, not the jerk. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my stepdaughter not to talk about the past? I, 48-year-old female, met my husband 8 years ago, and his daughters, aged 19 and 13, 6 years ago. My husband divorced their mother 13 years ago. My husband has told me the full story about the divorce, and while I won't go into detail as it's a long story, it wasn't amicable, and it really drove a wedge between him and his daughters, particularly his oldest. The other main thing that has gotten between my husband and his older daughter is that she's on the spectrum and has very little social awareness. Pretty much every time I see her, either I or someone else has to get on her about time and place, as she has a tendency to talk about things that aren't appropriate. The divorce is what she brings up the most when it happens. She seems to get a kick out of telling family members and friends stories about her father in which he's the bad guy, and while they are true stories, a lot of what she tells people is exaggerated. I've asked her several times not to discuss her childhood or the divorce during family events, as I don't want our extended family or friends to view my husband in a negative light. A few weeks ago, during a back-to-school party after winter break, I overheard her telling her stepfather a story about a time her dad was intoxicated. I stopped her and told her that we'd been over this, and at this point, it felt like she was doing it on purpose. She started to make up all kinds of excuses, such as her stepfather asked about it and she wasn't making it up, and I told her it didn't matter and that she shouldn't be talking about it regardless. She walked away from me, which she tends to do during confrontation, and her mother came up to me about 10 minutes later and laid into me for yelling at her daughter. She told me she agreed about the lack of awareness and time of place, but that I apparently need to let her handle it because she's her mother and I barely know her. Which is false. My husband has visitation and has the entire time I've known them. I'm honestly not sure if I was wrong. I've talked to her about it so many times, so I feel like it was at least partially warranted. But I'm curious what others think. Am I the jerk? I don't know, I'm kind of conflicted on this one because OP isn't the kid's parent, but they're also 19 years old. Like, even if socially they aren't the most aware, is it fair to say you can't talk about this? I think it would be fair for OP to give their opinion and say, I don't think it's appropriate for you to discuss that, but OP's coming at this more of a controlling, you should not be talking about this regardless ever, almost parental direction. Mammoth Foundation 52 commented, "You're the jerk. Your stepdaughter's an adult and was never your child. She has every right to talk about her own childhood and upbringing and is under no obligation to bottle that up to keep you comfortable or save face with the family. The way you speak about her being on the spectrum just drives the point home. You married a divorced man with kids, you don't get to decide what their story is. ETA, doubling down on my vote because of your "she tends to walk away from me during confrontation." You do not have the right to a captive audience for your lectures just because you're upset at the situation. It sounds like you make a habit of confronting her like this, especially over this, and she's realized the best way to avoid that is to just walk away from you. Smart woman. Her, not you, obviously. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not disclosing my will? I, 58-year-old male, was recently diagnosed with a terminal condition. Won't get into details, but it was the classical went in with a paper cut, got out with AIDS Cancer 2000 situation. I've got roughly a year and a half left. Over time, I've made a bunch of unwise decisions. I have multiple children with different women. I have 3 sons, Lance, 43, who has 2 daughters, Mark, 22, and Tony, 15. And 4 daughters, Cami, 38, who has 4 children, Linda, 30, Ronnie, 28, and Kathy, 24. Not going to lie here, I'll just say that I was only involved in raising Ronnie and Kathy. Their mom died when they were little and I couldn't refuse to take them in. Ronnie starting her career in law, and Kathy recently got her degree in agriculture. 9 years ago, I also took in Mark, who was kicked out by his crappy stepdad. Mark decided against pursuing higher education. I own a ranch. It's not a little one though, but we're managing just fine with the help of hired staff. We have about 500 heads of cattle, not counting the horses. The ranch has been in my family for generations. I know for certain that the only children who would be interested in preserving the ranch are Kathy and Mark. Maybe it's just my delusion grandeur, but I'm very passionate about passing the ranch down to my children so they'll be able to continue the family tradition. Knowing my children and knowing that they probably inherited my amazing personality, I can say for sure that the second I draw my last breath, there will be an inheritance war vicious enough to make Middle East and Eastern Europe seem like a recess fight in kindergarten. It will be nasty, painful, and disgusting. I wrote a will. As per my will, the ranch will go to Kathy and Mark 50-50, including all the machines, trucks, other equipment, financial assets. Ronnie, the executor of the will, is getting my 1970s Lincoln Continental. She's the one who's driving this car for the last 5 years, and she's the one paying for maintenance, insurance, everything. The other children get $10,000 each, and Tony gets my car, a 2010s Chevy Suburban, purely because it's a safe car and he's getting his license this year. The grandkids also get $5,000 each. It's not much, but I don't own much either. I've notified my children that I don't have much time left. Of course, they asked to see the will. I know that the second they see it, the crap will hit the fan and things will escalate. I don't want it. I don't want to spend my final year seeing my children suffer and fight. Ronnie advised me against disclosing the will. She's a skilled lawyer, so I trust her completely. I refused to disclose the will, and now my children are enraged. They keep speculating about the will. They keep pestering me and giving advice on what I should leave to whom. Am I the jerk for refusing to disclose the contents of my will? By now, the only ones who know about them are me and Ronnie, and I intend to keep it this way. This is a very complex situation. Honestly, I'm just going to go way back to the very beginning of this post and recognize, look, OP's only got a limited amount of time on this earth left. I mean, the fact alone that OP even got to this situation as far as the kids and the kids' parents, it kind of indicates that OP was kind of riding solo for most of it. Even if it does maybe make OP the jerk, if they want to just ride this out and not disclose it, who am I to say you're definitively a jerk when you're on your way out? Ran out of option 7 commented, going against the grain here with "you are the jerk"? It all just sounds like one cop-out after another. You didn't raise the majority of your children. Even the ones you did raise, you couldn't refuse to take them in. Your son was only taken in after his jerk stepdad kicked him out, while his real dad didn't take him in from the get-go, so what does that make you? Then you want to keep your will confidential because you don't want to handle the consequences of your own decisions of how you're choosing to distribute your assets. So you would rather your children all rip each other's throats out and hate on another than direct that anger where it really belongs, at you. Normally, I'd think that they should be more concerned with enjoying the time you have remaining and filling it with pleasant memories, but I really don't think that applies here. They've dealt with an absentee father their whole lives who's more concerned about his ranch than them. Our next story is, am I the jerk for not going to my mom's house to help my half-sister? So I, 17-year-old female, have a bunch of half-siblings from my mom. Mom cheated on my dad and got pregnant while they were still married, and my half-sister Erica is the baby that resulted from her cheating. My dad did a DNA test to confirm Erica wasn't his, and then he only sought parental responsibilities for me. They shared custody of me 50-50, and dad paid child support for me. My mom tried to get him to take responsibility for Erica too, but he refused. Erica's father has never been a part of her life. Over the next several years, my mom had Jace, Liam, Casey, Ava, and Paula. All of us have a different dad. I'm the only one with a dad in my life. After Jace was born, my mom lost custody of all of us for 2.5 years. Dad took sole custody of me at the time, Erica went to her mom's parents, and Jace was taken in by his paternal grandmother. Mom eventually got herself into a place where she could get custody back of Erica and Jace, and she was pregnant with Liam during that period. I never went back to 50-50 with her though, and instead she was granted every other weekend of me. My relationship with my half-siblings is not great. The biggest issue is that I'm not there that often, and there's jealousy that I have a dad and they don't. Erica and I have the worst relationship by far. She is so bitter about my dad not claiming all of them and raising us together and saving all of my half-siblings. Every time I'm at my mom's, she'll insult my dad and call him names and tell me I should pick them over my dad. She asked me how I can live with someone who turns his back on kids who should be his. I've told her to stop countless times. We fight about it every time I go to mom's house. We also fight because I refuse to just pack them all up and insist my dad start raising all my half-siblings. Erica has started to say she wishes my dad would drop dead and then I'll be all alone because I've rejected them by refusing to help. And I deserve to be alone, and my dad deserves to be dead for turning his back on kids. That was when I was sort of like, freak it, and I do my best to avoid Erica where I can. I also stopped going for every other weekend, and my mom doesn't seem to care, so it's worked out okay. 2 weekends ago, Erica called and said she had an assignment for school and needed help with it because she was about to fail her class. She wanted me to go to mom's and help her, and I refused. I told her she's on her own and I don't help people who wish my dad dead and wish me to be alone. She started crying on the phone, but I hung up. My mom called last week and yelled at me because Erica was upset and had failed, and she told me I was supposed to be the leader and the best big sister to all my siblings, but I acted like an only child who only cares about my dad. Erica also sent me a really angry text. Am I the jerk? OP can't be the jerk, right? Like, this is a blatantly toxic situation, and if I were in OP's shoes, I wouldn't want to be spending any time over there. You can't one day wish death on someone's dad and wish the person misfortune and then turn around and say, by the way, I need your help, come on over. All that's coming on over is the consequences of her actions at this point. Remarkable Word 9396 commented, not the jerk. First, sorry your family seems so dysfunctional. That's really difficult to cope with. Why didn't Erica's mom help her, or she get school tutoring or any other of a million options? She's not your responsibility, she's the mom's. Would it be nice for you to help? Sure, but you don't have the relationship with her because of her past actions. Good luck making it to 18. Hopefully you can get to college or at least away from that drama-filled mess. Our next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to take her, 22-year-old female, banana bread? I, 24-year-old male, was at my company cafeteria when I saw someone, 22-year-old female, who also goes to my gym. I started talking to her, just a friendly conversation because I was bored. I didn't know she also worked at our company, but we decided to have small talk at lunch and go our separate ways. I actually wanted a buddy to talk to for lunch. I started seeing her every day, and it was nice to have a friendly conversation and talk to people at our cafeteria. There's honestly no one who goes there, and sitting alone while eating makes me depressed. The next day I went back to my cubicle when I saw her standing there with banana bread. Now, she doesn't work in the same department as me, but on a different floor of our building. I'm not sure how she found my cubicle number, but I'm guessing she searched through every floor since there's only 5 floors. She told me she made banana bread for me and wanted me to try it. I said I didn't really want to, I don't like banana bread. She insisted that it took her hours to make and she wanted to share it in lunch and try a little. I said no thanks. Then she got angry and said I was a jerk and left my cubicle. Did I do something wrong for saying no to her bread? OP's not the jerk here. I almost wonder if this is like, she kind of likes OP or she's kind of interested and this was like their way of like, kind of trying to move things forward. Maybe to her, OP saying, I don't really like banana bread, I don't really want to try it, is weirdly being taken in a very personal way that shouldn't be. Holiday Doc 1995 commented, this is a weird story. So you've been eating lunch with this person every day. It sounds like you're friends. She took time out of her life to bake you some bread, and you told her you don't want to try it and don't like banana bread. That's a pretty rude response and would be hurtful for someone who went out of their way to do something nice for you. You didn't need to try the bread, but you could have had some tact in your rejection. It's not hard to say, "Thank you for thinking of me, that's kind of you. Unfortunately, I don't like banana bread, but please think of me next time you bake something with chocolate." She didn't take the rejection well and was probably quite embarrassed. That doesn't justify her lashing out at you by calling you a jerk. Everybody sucks here. Our next story is, am I the jerk for telling my son that we don't really have any room for him right now, so he needs to live with his dad and stepmom? My ex-husband and I divorced when my son was 10. My ex had found someone new. We went for 50-50 custody, but he still had to pay some child support. I went back to school at that time. On the weeks his dad had him, I buckled down and did nothing but schoolwork. When he was with me, I made sure I had time for him before and after school. I did expect him to help around the house, but nothing excessive, mostly just cleaning up after himself and helping with cooking and laundry. His dad's house was more fun. I tried to make my home welcoming. I bought a used PS4 and I got fiber optic internet. It wasn't enough for him. When he was 14, he and his father got the court to award my ex primary custody. I did fight it, but my son made it clear he would run away if I didn't give in. Counseling didn't help. I tried everything. It was devastating having my son decide I wasn't someone he wanted to spend time with. He started skipping visitation. When he did come, he would leave the house and not come home until it was time to sleep. During this time, I started a relationship with my current husband. He helped me through this. He wasn't on my radar romantically, nobody was, so we got close by being an amazing friend. I asked him out and we got married 6 months later. We had known each other since I went back to university. 6 months after we got married, I got pregnant. By strange coincidence, so did the woman my ex was cheating with. Not the woman he left me for, a newer model. I had sold my house and my husband and I bought a condo together. Just a 2-bedroom apartment with a tiny den. We made the den into a nursery and consolidated our offices into the 2nd bedroom. My ex moved in with his new girlfriend, and she isn't a fan of my son. His stepmother doesn't want him there if his father isn't there, so my son is also in the new house with his dad's pregnant girlfriend, and her mom. My son is 16 now and he called me to see if he could stay with me. I said I didn't really have any room. He asked me what I did with his room. He didn't even know I sold the house. He is very upset. He called me a bench for not having a place for him to stay. I said he could stay in our living room on the couch. Not acceptable. I talked to my husband and we have enough money from the sale of my house and his old bachelor pad, as well as our condo, to buy back into the market. We were waiting for interest rates to fall, and we were going to move to a more reasonably priced city. I told my son if he could take the living room for now, we could have a room for him in 6 months. He moved in with his grandparents. He isn't happy there. At least his dad got him a car so he can drive to his same school. My son is ticked that I prioritized my new baby and my work over him. I had no expectation to ever need to house him again. My ex called me and told me to make our office into a room for our son. I told him that our son's circumstances were his fault, not mine. I kind of think that there's a very light "you're the jerk" on OP's side, but I think this is more of a everybody sucks here kind of thing. I feel like OP as a mother could have done more for their 16-year-old kid, but at the same time, I completely recognize the dad is the primary custodian. The dad is the one who enabled the situation to be what it is. AJ Alva commented, "Everybody sucks here. Your son made his decision and he got what he wanted. It's not cool that he's now facing the consequences of his father's infidelity again, but this decision is legally bound. It is your ex's responsibility to care for your son by his own doing." With that being said, as a mother, I think you're letting an opportunity to rekindle the relationship pass. He's 16, and it was probably really hard to reach out to you and ask for help. There has to be a more creative solution that can get you both under the same roof, while also giving everyone their space during such a transitional stage. This next story is, am I the jerk for refusing to go to my parents anymore until my daughter is over 1? I told my parents I'm no longer coming over to their house. I just had a baby and she's having a hard time with latching and feedings. Every time I have to feed her, my father makes rude remarks about how I need to cover up, or how my daughter always has a boob in her mouth. I've explained before that covering up right now isn't an option because of the issues we're having, but when they resolve, I'd be more than happy to. I've also explicitly said that his remarks upset me. I finally made the decision to stop going over there until my daughter is no longer breastfeeding. My mom keeps inviting us over for dinner, but I've let her know that I'm not interested in going over there anymore. Am I the jerk for setting these boundaries, or should I just let it go? Update, we talked about it in family therapy and my dad compared it to him pulling out his private parts and peeing in front of me. I told him that was a complete apples to oranges comparison and he needed to grow up. My mother told him she didn't want to have to choose between seeing her granddaughter or him, but she would choose her granddaughter. He started yelling and cursing at me, so I walked out of therapy. I guess this is the hill he wants to die on. How disappointing. I think it's needless to say OP's not the jerk here, especially considering they're just having complications in general. There's a reason most situations, most places all say no inappropriate clothing with the clear exception of breastfeeding. Cordamandua Rosa commented, "Your dad sounds great. My dad was also absolutely great. My father-in-law took, but in a slightly different way. He's a septuagenarian dairy farmer and his main concern was, Thomas, you make sure you're keeping an eye on her. Don't want mastitis creeping in. Then after a few weeks, look at the growth on that kid. Must be getting plenty of milk," while being scolded by my mother-in-law for trying to put the baby on the farm scales. Our next story is, am I the jerk for ruining my mom's engagement party after she abandoned me when I was 11? I, 17-year-old male, have a strained relationship with my mom, 35-year-old female, after an incident that happened about 6 years ago. My mom was super strict and a helicopter parent, so we fought a lot over my grades and the trouble I got into at school. She had essentially abandoned me, signing over custody to my dad after I told her something along the lines of, "I hate you and I wish I lived with dad." Typical things an angsty preteen says to their parent, but that fight seemed to have broke her and she cried dropping me off at my dad's apartment. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal and I would just see her the next day after she proved her point, but she left me there. After that, things got essentially worse for me. My grades dropped and I kept getting into trouble at school, almost to the point where I was kicked out. My dad never had job security, so money was tight. His girlfriend also wasn't fond of me, saying I was dumped on them. I wanted to go back to live with my mom. I thought to apologize, but my mom had essentially moved on with her life. She went back to college to get her degree and was always studying and later on was focused on her new work. On the weekends, I would get to see her. Things were tense between us. She tried so hard to be the fun parent, eating takeout and leaving me to do what I wanted, but it was so unlike her, and we became more estranged. 3 years ago, she started dating Paul, 39-year-old male, a widower with 2 daughters, 9 and 13. She started treating his daughters like they were her own, and they started calling her Mummy, which irritated me. Eventually, they moved into my mom's house and changed my childhood bedroom into one of the daughters' rooms. I was livid when I found out, saying some mean things about the girls, and refused to go back there for my mom's weekends, but she was confused on why I was acting this way. Because of this fight, she thought I wouldn't be attending the engagement party when she announced her and Paul would be getting married. Besides, she didn't want anything to ruin the perfect picture of her new family, so I made it a point to go for the party and called her out on her behavior. I wanted to confront her and tell her that she wouldn't have to bother with me after I go off to college, but I may have taken it a tad too far. Everyone kept talking about how Paul's daughters were like her children and how it would be when she had more kids, and it snapped something in me. I called her a horrible parent and told her she was trying to replace me with the little brats after she had abandoned me, along with some other insults I don't really remember. Paul kicked me and my dad out, saying I was a jerk for making his fiancé and girls cry and ruining the engagement party. He said I won't be allowed to the wedding unless I called and apologized. I may have taken it a bit too far, but my dad agrees she had it coming after she abandoned a young child at an age when I needed my mother. So, am I the jerk, and should I apologize? I feel like this is a very complicated situation, and it's something where, like, some people might be able to point fingers at lack of communication and not speaking up, but like OP pointed out, most of this happened when OP was a preteen. So for OP to grow up and see all of this happen and have some resentment and jealousy and these complex feelings that just were never communicated or worked upon, I don't really think OP is the jerk. There's just a lot that hopefully at some point can be communicated and worked on. Neo Jeschel commented, "This is above the pay grade of the sub. You're a child and she's an adult and your mother. She needs to do the emotional work of creating the conditions for your reconciliation. If she can't, you need to focus on your own growth and figuring out how to establish yourself in life. It doesn't sound like she's going to be coming through on that, so you're on your own. That is of far bigger significance than whether or not you're the jerk. Take care of yourself, not the jerk. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another absolutely crazy Am I the Jerk Here story, check out that video on the left. Or if you missed my latest video, check out that video on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.